Meantime, in this new Truth Social post on expanded steel and aluminum tariffs, the president also targeting some autos, saying, quote, if other egregious long-time tariffs are not likewise dropped by Canada, I will substantially increase on April 2nd the tariff on cars coming into the U.S., which will essentially permanently shut down the automobile manufacturing business in Canada. Those cars can easily be made in the USA, he writes. Our Phil LeBeau joins us this morning to talk about whether, Phil, that's true.
Is that what you're asking, Carl? The answer to that question is theoretically, yes, they could be. Will it happen tomorrow? Nope. Because you've got to change your tooling. You've got to find the capacity in order to move those vehicles that are built in Canada down to the United States. And by the way, talking with executives in the auto industry, there's paralysis amongst the auto industry in the C-suites. Why? Yes, they understand that the administration wants production brought back to the United States. But the production for vehicles is set up by region, and North America is a region. And you just can't move a plant from one country to another, have it done overnight. I've done some game planning, or asking for a game plan from people who work with the automakers. Minimum to set up a new plant, 3.5 to 4 years. Minimum cost, $3.5 billion, maybe $4 billion. If you're an executive and you know that the administration wants you to move production here to the U.S., while on one hand you want to be on the good side of the administration, on the other you have to sit there and say, wait a second, can we even do this? Is it even feasible to move an entire plant into the United States? What's more likely to happen is that those plants that may have some excess capacity is where you will see some production brought from Canada or from Mexico into those plants in the United States, while the automakers are trying to figure out how they're going to handle this on a long-term basis.
Phil, obviously there are no real Canadian-owned auto companies, right? This is
right.
Directed at the big three principally.
100% right.
I have to believe that Ford and GM...
By the way, go ahead,
yeah.
Mike, it's not just the big three. It's directed at Canada. Because you look at Toyota builds the RAV4 and some Lexus models up in Canada.
Okay.
Look, the RAV4 is wildly popular, one of the most popular vehicles sold here in the United States. So, what this is the Trump administration saying to Canada, you think you have these plants? Think again. We want them down here.
Right. I just have to believe that if people were taking this at face value and saying this is now going to happen, Ford would be down more than 1.6%. I mean, obviously, these are beaten down cheap stocks in the first place. But I guess it just gets to your point of just nobody knows quite what rules we're going to be playing by.
Correct. They don't know the rules, and they also don't know if this is permanent. And you have to look at it from the auto executive standpoint. Why am I going to take the most profitable region in the world, and the United States is the most profitable market for them, it's the North American automakers. I'm going to cut into my margins and make these billion-dollar changes. I'm only going to do that if I know that this is permanent. And you could make this argument during the first Trump administration. And you wouldn't say they waited them out, but they sat there, and at the end of the Trump administration, those threats of, hey, you got to move more production here, all of that dissipated. What's going to happen in a couple of years from now? Or by the time we get to 2028, what's going to happen? If it's not the Trump administration, it won't be President Trump. If it's a new president, if it's not a Republican, is the policy going to completely change? Right. And now you've already committed $3 billion to build a new plant in the United States? I mean, those are the things that they're weighing.
That would be the ultimate burn if you went through all the trouble only to see it reversed, and it was all for naught. Phil, on the airlines, you've been covering this industry for so long. I wonder how you characterize at least the guidance trims out of Delta and American today.
First quarter near-term issues is the way I would look at it. And we asked Ed Bastian yesterday, point blank, do you think we are headed towards a recession? Look, these guys have been through many of these economic cycles. They know what a recession feels like. This doesn't feel like it to the airline executives. The bookings, while there is some softness domestically right now, summer trends look solid, and international is not slowing down at all. One last note. People have said to me, well, why is Southwest up more than 8%? Duh, they're going to be bringing in a lot more money with the bag policy changing. That's a huge game changer for Southwest. And I know there will be Southwest fans who say, I like the fact that bags fly free. Yeah, I think a lot of people like the fact that bags fly free. But you know what? The bottom line is going to improve now that they will be having a policy where they're checking bags and charging bags that are being checked.
Phil, busy day on your beat. Phil LeBeau, thanks so much.